Okay. So this, we spent the last few weeks in the month of November talking about abundance, about prosperity, and it's, I just speaking about it really uplifts me. So I know and I hope that you have all, if you've been here, have felt that upliftment, that abundance consciousness. We're using Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity, as the basis for the talks, and it's, if you don't have the book, we do have it for sale. Yay. So, you know, purchase it at the book table outside. But here's an interesting, this is a really interesting tidbit about the book and about the time that it was written that kind of puts the reading into perspective. What was happening in America in 1936?
Depression.
Thank you. Yes, we were having what is called the Great Depression. So that's when he wrote this book, in 1936. So that was the mindset of people then, and he had the insight to write this. Well, yeah, let me get to it. The spiritual substance from which all visible wealth is never depleted. It is right with you all the time and responds to your faith in it and your demand on it, not affected by our ignorant talk of hard times. Though we are affected because our thoughts and our words govern our demonstration. Pour your living words of faith into the omnipresent substance, and you will prosper, though all the banks in the world may close their doors. So, and it still goes, of course it goes today, and it's an ongoing consciousness of abundance that we are developing. And when we realize when this book was written, we see what an incredible mind this man had and what a faith he had in the immutable substance, the law of God. And so today we're going to explore the concept of being rich in ideas, therefore rich in life. Ideas are the currency of the universal mind. God thinks, God, the divine energy of all, thinks in ideas. And so I'm going to give you some examples today of how we create our lives by those ideas. And so before I start that, I'm very aware that it's been 2 years since we had a very divisive election. 2 years later, this country still feels a little divided. And whatever side of the fence that you might be on is fine. It's definitely not what we're here to debate about today. I think it's accurate to say that there is some emotional healing that needs to maybe take place within us. I know also within myself, yeah. I had to share the airport with the man last week. It was like, I had to do a lot of my forgiveness work, but anyway. But it's really, this whole, I don't even know what to call it, race consciousness that's taking place in this country is part of the healing work that we are meant to do. And it's related to the topic because we can't live a life that's rich in ideas and fulfillment when we're blocked by any kind of resentment. Any kind of emotional blocks will keep the good from flowing in and through into our lives. It can't happen. It cannot happen. Being emotionally clogged is like a dam around our hearts. That's what it's like. Holding back the mighty living waters of good that the universe is always bestowing upon us. And those waters will be, they will be held back until the dam is opened. There has to be some wiggle room in there for the good of God to make its way into our lives. You ever feel like when you're in a place of I don't know, resentment, anger, upset, you cannot have a creative idea usually in those times because you're so wrapped up emotionally that the divine flow of good can't get through. This is what we're talking about. Not only do blocked emotions act like a dam holding back that flow of inspiration, ideas, and clarity and creativity from being expressed through us, but blocked emotions also are like a brick wall around our heart, keeping that abundant flow of good from reaching us. I remember before I had these teachings that have enriched my life, and I know so many of you has enriched our lives incredibly. There was such, and I remember feeling it, such a brick wall around my heart that it was very difficult to even have an emotion because it was so blocked in, you know, from growing up and trying to survive through a very abusive childhood. It was very difficult to have any kind of emotion. So the creativity was coming to me and I couldn't allow it in. So anything good that came into my life, I was like, no, no. Here, this is this fabulous job, no. Here's this incredible relationship, no. No, it was no to everything. So what I'm saying is that emotional wall around us, it needs to be taken down brick by practicing what we teach here. In Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, it, meaning God, is ready to fill everything. God is really ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it's not a question of its willingness nor its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. How receptive are we to the good that is forever flowing into our lives? We are not receptive if we are emotionally clogged up. That's plain and simple, just to let you know. And yet we can't spiritually bypass our emotions either, which is a real New Thought kind of thing. Oh, don't say that word. Oh, don't. That's going to change everything, right? No, so we repress. Even in spirituality, there are places that teach you to suppress and repress the emotions, the pain you might be in, the grief you might be in. And that's called a spiritual bypass. And we might say things like, which these are 100% spiritually true. It's all good, it's all God. I even do that. But I usually get to that point after I feel the feelings. Divine right order is always taking place. We're all one. Now this is in the middle of some, say, a really upsetting situation or loss or anything like that. We must feel the feelings, otherwise we are clogging up ourselves emotionally. But those things that I just said are 100% true. God is always present, God is always there, it's all good, it's all God. But I am encouraging all of us not to do a spiritual bypass. So, if we immediately go to those great affirmations, those spiritual truths, without acknowledging and truly feeling whatever it is that we are feeling, then we are using building blocks and we are blocking the good. So we're not really, do we all understand that? It's so important to understand these spiritual teachings, which is so empowering and so enriching and so encouraging to us. But at the same time, as we go through human situations, acknowledge them. Acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge the anger. But then, as I say a lot here, don't hang out in them. You know, when you're going through hell, don't stop and build that condo, right? We don't want to live in that place. So I ask a very important and pointed question this morning, which does not require a verbal answer, but please, go into your heart with honesty to help tear down that dam that you might have built, or that wall, most of the time we don't even know it's there. We don't even know it's there. But the minute you start with these spiritual practices, it's amazing. You start to feel this movement. I did. I'm like, what's that? You know? It was like this movement in this part of my body. And I didn't even know what it was. And it was the love trying to express that had been shut down. So this morning, I want to offer us a powerful prayer of forgiveness, because forgiveness, and that's why I was drawn to radical forgiveness. I don't even know how long ago, 2002, so many years ago, I went and studied with Colin Tipping, and it totally shifted everything. It's why I taught the class last year again, because it felt like every couple of years, if not more, we need to touch base with that forgiveness thing. But I invite you to be with this Buddhist prayer of forgiveness that I'm going to read this morning, even if it's about the global environment. I mean, really, we have to pray for Mother Earth for sure. Well, not for Mother Earth. Mother Earth's fine. We got to pray for us. That's what we got to pray for us, for all of us humans who are waging what looks like war with Mother Earth. So that's part of forgiving ourselves. We must forgive, and then we can take inspired actions. So I invite you to close your eyes just for a moment. Take a deep breath in. And this is a Buddhist prayer of forgiveness that I want to read to you. If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my own confusion, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusion, I forgive them. I forgive them. And if there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that too. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate doubt, belittle myself, judge or be unkind to myself through my confusion, I forgive myself. And so take a deep breath in. And out. By doing that, you have created a beautiful space for the divine ideas to flow through. This talk this morning is all about divine ideas, rich ideas, and living that rich life. So we're going to widen that space even more by looking at this profound passage from Prosperity, the book by Charles Fillmore. This is kind of long, but I think that it needs to be said, so I'd like us to really listen to this. We are sometimes asked whether we advocate the accumulation of riches. No. The accumulation of riches is futile unless it is the outgrowth of a rich consciousness. We advocate the accumulation, rather, of rich ideas, ideas that are useful, constructive, and of service to the well-being of all humankind. He or she may not have an extra dollar, but the ideas have merit, and he or she has confidence, a combination that cannot fail to attract the money to carry him forward. This is true riches, not, I'm still reading from Fillmore. This is true riches, not an accumulation of money, but access to an inexhaustible resource that can be drawn on any time to meet any righteous demand. When a person has a rich consciousness, there is no necessity for laying up gold or accumulating stocks and bonds or other property to ensure future supply. Such a one may be lost generously with his wealth without fear of depletion, because his rich ideas will keep him in constant touch with abundance. It's the rich ideas. It's the consciousness behind. I'm going to read that last line one more time. Such a one, meaning the one who has that rich consciousness, may be most generous with his wealth without fear of depletion, because his rich ideas will keep him in constant touch with his abundance. And I love the idea, I always love this idea, that ideas are God's first currency. The only currency of the universe is ideas and creation. And what Fillmore is thinking about here in this passage is our rich ideas, which are ever available, will always lead to financial abundance. They will, when we really trust that our supply is infinite and limitless, the ideas that we draw into our lives will lead us into a prosperous life. It can't happen any other way. So say this after me. My rich ideas create rich results.
My rich ideas create rich results.
Yes, and so it is. Your rich ideas may bring to you a new job, a relationship, a project, a new way of doing your project, a new project, an invention. And did you know that many inventions took place during the 30s, right, during the Great Depression? I have a few. I thought these were kind of cool, and there's so many more. So here we go. Jacob Schick drew up designs for the world's first electronic dry razor after he was fed up with lathering his face in cold water and no heat, because he couldn't afford either in his home. And in 1929, his razors that he created were on the shelves. And that's how the company we know today as Schick came about. That's in 1920. The car radio was invented by Paul and Joseph Galvin, who needed new revenue after the financial crash. Designs were drawn in 1930 and 1933. And Ford was then manufacturing cars to include radios later on. And the brothers changed the name from Galvin Manufacturers to a name that you might have heard of, Motorola. And here's one of my favorite inventions, the chocolate chip cookie. That evolved. This is really interesting. This is very important in my life. Okay, so, anyway, in 1933, Ruth Wakefield couldn't get any baker's chocolate to make her chocolate cookies. And so she decided to cut up a chocolate bar and add it to the cookie dough. This is so cool, right? Resulting in chocolate chips. Soon, Nestle's bought her recipe, and the rest, as they say, is history. Chocolate chip cookies came about in 1933. How about that? After J.F. Cantrell noticed that only wealthy people and those with electricity available could use powered washing machines. I know I grew up in England for 8 years, so we didn't have electricity, so there was no electricity, so there was obviously no washing machines. That was what mothers and grandmothers were for, right? So the guys didn't seem to do it. Well, he went around and he opened the world's first laundromat in 1934. He charged people by the hour. He had 4 machines. It took off. He created the first laundromat, many of which I have given great thanks for over the course of my life. Boy, did I feel rich. When in my 30s, I finally owned my own washing machine and dryer. I was like, wow. And you know what? That thought never has left my consciousness. I am still grateful every time I get to do a wash. And I don't have to leave the house. It's an all-day thing with the shopping cart and the bags. You know, it's an all-day thing for a family of 4, right? So finally, I have one more. The game of Monopoly. That was invented in 1935 after Charles Darrow decided to give people something to be happy about after all the sadness that was going on in the Depression. These things all came about because of what looked like one of the worst times in American history. Yes, rich ideas can definitely create rich results. And I love the way that Elizabeth Gilbert, I'm going to go a little bit out on this one, in her Big Magic, how she shares this. She suggests that we think about ideas as energetic life forms floating around in the ethers. Love that. Think of it. The way God is expressing his creativity is an infinite number of formless ideas. Formless ideas. They're all floating around. At this point, the ideas have no material body to be put into. And Gilbert's viewpoint is that they are driven by a single impulse to be made manifest in the physical world. The trick for many of these formless ideas is that the only way they can be manifest in the world is through collaboration with a human, right? This is her theory. I mean, it's not science of mind, but it's interesting. Therefore, ideas spent eternity swirling around us, searching for available and willing human partners. And when an idea thinks it has found somebody who might be able to bring it into the world, say one of us, why not? It will pay a visit. It will try to get our attention. Chances are fairly good that we won't notice. Because that's what we're doing, busy living life, right? We're busy, we're distracted. We're busy watching TV, we're busy being involved in dramas, we're busy on Facebook, we're busy on so many different aspects. These ideas are all swirling around. You know, when you get a great idea, how many people have said, oh, it came out of nowhere? Well, it had to come out of somewhere. Because there is no nowhere, right? We need to be receptive to receive the inspiration. We might miss the signal because we're really busy doing these other important things. And you ever think of a great idea and then you just ignored it, you didn't pay it any attention, and someone else thought of it? And you say, they stole my idea. Did they steal your idea? An idea tried to wave us down. We ignored it. We ignored it. And Gilbert writes this, but sometimes there comes a moment when you're open and relaxed enough to actually receive it. Your defenses might slacken and your anxieties might ease, and then magic can slip through. The idea, sensing your openness, will start to do its work on you. It will send the universal physical and emotional signals of inspiration, and then in a quiet moment, it will ask, do you want to work with me? How many ideas have we had that we've ignored? And then when we did wake up to one that really worked for us, even though maybe we didn't want to do it, we allowed it in, and our lives changed. And our lives changed. Anyone ever have that experience? Okay. At this point, of course, you have the right to either reject the idea or to accept the idea. The simplest answer and often the easiest answer, and sometimes the right answer for you, is to just say no. Sometimes ideas are not so good for us. I've had a lot of ideas I thought were great, but they weren't good for me. So either I follow them and, cause and effect, you're going to get the effect of any cause. But the ones that are really great for us, you can feel it, we know it. Eventually, the ideas do go away and you don't need to bother with it. It may not be the right time for you. It may not be really good for you. So you might say no, and that's perfectly fine. Because when you say no, nothing happens. Did you ever notice that? Nothing happens when you say no to an idea. But here's something really important to get. Have any of you ever had an idea and decided for whatever reason not to pursue it? And then, I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. And then had somebody say, and then you say that somebody stole my idea. Well, it's time for us to step away from that and never say that again, because no one stole our idea. This is a universal creative energy that I'm speaking about, and it never repeats itself. It doesn't have to. But if you're receptive to these great ideas, they will change your life if you take the right action. No blame, no guilt. It's a choice. Complete responsibility. And that's what New Thought teaches. We are responsible for our lives. That's it, period. We are responsible for our lives. If anything happens to us, then we're in victim consciousness. We need to get out of it. So we always have that choice. Or we can embrace the inspiration, be entirely mesmerized by the idea, roll up our sleeves and really get to work. And that's what Fillmore is telling us to do. When he wrote in that passage earlier, we advocate the accumulation of rich ideas, ideas that are useful, constructive, and of service to the well-being of humankind. So I have a challenge for you this morning. First, if you want to be a person upon whom these rich ideas float into your life, whether they land on you or not, is to become an inviting receptacle. To be open, it's been something I've been saying for a couple of years now, to be open and receptive to different ideas that might not feel right, good. Now, I don't want to say right, but they don't feel good, like I really don't want to do that. But when we do take that inspired action, it changes lives, it changes our life, it changes the lives of people around us. And so, in order to really fully be open to and receptive, we must do the forgiveness work. Everybody, all the time. There are no exceptions. There's no way around forgiveness. There's no way around it. Because that resentment will be a block to the good. I'm going to finish this off with Ernest Holmes in Creative Mind and Success, his book. And he gave us some great wisdom. This is what he wrote. When we feel that we do have the right idea leading, when that something inside us tells us that we are led, then, no matter what it appears like, we must follow it. Something beyond our intelligence is doing the thing through us, and we must do nothing to contradict it. Great men and women are the ones who get a vision and then go right to work to make it come true, never looking to one side, but with one pointedness and calm determination, stick to the thing until it is accomplished. This is his book on success. This is success. We get the inspired idea, we take the inspired action, we move upon it. And it's limitless. So if you say no to one, there are plenty more that come through. Whatever idea that you have, my friends, big or small, go for it. So I can say, go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You learn a lesson, big deal. The worst thing that can happen, you learn a very valuable lesson. And this is how you deal with the currency of ideas. And Every supply for every need is always met. I've proved it to myself, and as I've said before, you can prove it to yourself by following something that seems way out of your range, like where did that idea come from, and go for it. Just go for it. And so it is. Yeah.